everybody, welcome to Emily Kate Made This. I am Emily Kate and I'm coming to you from Berlin in Germany. Welcome to my knitting slash sewing slash general crafty YouTube channel. Here we talk about mostly knitting, sometimes sewing, and occasionally something else I've been crafting up. Today's episode is entirely knitting. It's entirely knitting and it's going to be about some of the things that are on my needles and my January, that would be very ambitious, my 2024 plans for the year. I am wobbling this tea all over the place. In my last episode, I talked to you about all the things that I made in 2023. So if you haven't seen that, I'll try and link it up here somewhere. And thank you to everybody who watched it, and hello to everybody who's new. Quite a few of you subscribed after that video, so thank you. And hopefully you will enjoy what I have for this year. Which brings me on to my Make 9, which is absolutely not a Make 9 because it's more like a Make 30. I have never been so indecisive or had so many things I wanted to make all at once, like all at the same time. I always have like a bunch of stuff I'd like to make, but never have I ever just sat there in paralysis of no idea what to cast on because I want to make all the things and I've got the patterns and I'm sitting there and I'm just like, and that is what happened at the very beginning of January. I had all these things that I desperately wanted to start. I almost cast every single thing on and then just went with whatever I wanted to knit on, but I don't have enough needles for that, so that didn't happen. But I thought I'd make my normal Make 9, but I couldn't record a video because I couldn't make a decision. And in the end I thought, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I do a Make 9 or a Make 18 or a Make 100. I'm never going to knit all of them anyway in 1 year, so I'll just put everything on my list and talk about the things I want to make with you today. So I've kind of set it up as a Make 9 vintage and a Make 9 modern, but I'm pretty certain it's still more than Make 18. So I thought I would run through a few with you. Yeah, I said it once. And it will include some of my current works in progress, so I thought I'd just do it at the same time. So let us begin. Alright, I'm going to use my tablet because obviously I can't remember everything. So I think I'll start with my Make 9 for vintage. And as I said, it's not actually 9, but I will eventually put this into more of an order, especially for me next year when I want to talk about my Make 9 and then I don't have one. So let us begin. As I said, it's not an exact Make 9, but it is my solid plans for 2024, and hopefully I can make a big dent in at least some of them, like a good chunk of them. There's no particular order that I have them set in, but I do have some. One is already done. Spoiler alert. One is already done, but I won't tell you which one it is. But I will be posting a video about it very soon. I just need to take a picture. It is glorious and snowy outside, so I was kind of hoping I could get a picture today and a video, but well, we'll see. So I have a vintage section first. That includes jumpers and accessories. Yeah, jumpers and accessories. I'm also in a little bit of an indecision paralysis mode, so perhaps you can help me. If you really want to see one in particular, let me know below. That would help me make a decision on which one I should do earlier rather than later, or not at all. I came across a beautiful jumper in a magazine, which I should go and get. I am obsessed with vintage magazines. If you've been here a while, you will know that I am obsessed with vintage patterns, and it has spread into German patterns now. I'm not going to pretend I can understand every single thing or vast majority of what's in the pattern, but I have discovered there are patterns that were in West Germany and East Germany. I will go get it. So to my understanding, this came from the former East Germany, so out of the DDR, and I'm not 100% sure on the date. There is no date printed, there's no evidence of the company that it ever existed online. I tried using AI, but it also couldn't give me any dates. It just says it existed in the DDR times. So this is the gorgeous, gorgeous magazine. And this is the pattern that I want to make. If you've been on my Instagram, you will know that I have posted a few pictures and videos of this and the madness, the mayhem of what the patterns are like inside. You basically get this book and it has a bunch of pictures, hand-drawn pictures of, I'm trying to take the inside out. Come on. Has a bunch of hand-drawn pictures, so there's no actual human beings modelling things, but and one of my other favourites. So, for example, you think, I want to make this. You don't just open the pattern book and there it is. You have to go through this, I'm going to say A3, but it could be A1, A3 sized sheet of paper. I'm trying to be delicate because some of them are ripping. This is every single pattern in the magazine. Just written into small little squares, like 1 inch, 2 inch squares. That is your pattern. And also for any sewing, or I'm going to have to put this on the floor. And any charts, you find the reference number and find them like this. So it might say cast on, I don't know, 60 stitches in middle thickness wool. What is that? I don't know. And then look at figure 16. Okay, that's the picture you want. Find pattern number 32. Okay, you got that. Oh, you want the chart. Oh, that's over on this page, and that is chart number 6. And so you just go between them. Obviously, it's great for paper saving, and assuming that you know how to sew and knit, you just need the numbers. Like, it's probably a lot easier if you're not used to modern day patterns. But for me, that was like, okay. That's interesting. But to be completely honest, since I've been knitting vintage knitting patterns, I am completely overwhelmed by modern knitting patterns. So for me, having like 5 centimeters worth of German text, I can cope with that. Google Translate could probably cope with that. And I just need to know, okay, I've cast on 60 stitches and go for 8 centimeters. I can do that. Modern patterns. Oh, no, there's just so much information. I don't even know where to begin. So that is one of the first patterns that I would like to try and knit. Obviously, I have to figure out gauge and which wool they are meaning. It says middle thickness, but the gauge was, I think, 6.5, 6.5 stitches per 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch. So it's still looking like it's going to be whatever that was, 24 or 26 stitches in 4 inches 10 centimeters. So yeah, I need to figure that out. That is on the list. Only issue I have is the lack of wool. I want it in green and I want to have the colour work, and I was going to use my woolly knit cone, and originally I was going to hold it double, but then that would be too thick for the rest of the gauge. So I think, based off of my cactus top that I did a couple of years ago, that did have about 6 stitches per 2.5 centimeters. So I should be able to use the green. It's just the colour work on the cactus jumper just looks so horrible when you look at it up close. It doesn't blend in like Shetland wool does, so I don't want to use that wool for the colour work, but I'm wondering if I can use like a Ralma Finul for the colour work and the woolly knit green cone for the body. That way I'll use the cone, but I won't have the colour work issues because it'll have correct wool for colour work. So that's my hope. Yes. Okay, the next one is from a different magazine, another German magazine, which I'm pretty sure comes from 1949, based off of an advertisement in the book. And again, there's no information about the company, there's no information about when it was printed or anything, but going by that one advertisement and by the general look of what the people are wearing, I'm going with 1949. This one has actual human beings. This is former West Germany. And I'm pretty sure it showed, yes, I definitely showed you this magazine, but it might have been in my Vlogmas or Craftmas videos rather than my regular. So if you haven't seen them, you won't know what I'm talking about, so here it is. And I also did a small flip through, and this cardigan, I just love it. So that is on my list. It has intarsia or duplicate stitch, and it also has cables. So that looks just delightful, and I really want to make them. And I am currently working on one of 3 from this set. Trying to be delicate with the pages. So there's gloves, a hat, and some house shoes. I'm starting on the gloves because I assumed it would be easier, but the chart is making my eyeballs like die. The chart is tiny. I took a picture on my tablet and then zoomed in and then tried to brighten it, and it still hurts my eyes. But the idea of sitting there and individually charting each one on some kind of software online, that just does not appeal to me in any way. And equally, I would still have to stare at the chart for probably as long as I will looking at it to knit the gloves. So I'm just going with it and zooming in and looking away a lot and then looking back. There is also the problem that the chart is wrong in several places, so that's not so fun, but it does mean I have to really concentrate, so it's like knitting meditation. So that is on my list as well. I don't know if that counts as 1 or 3 projects, but I'd love to make all 3. I don't know what the hat's going to look like. I don't know how it even stays on. There's no ribbing and there's no like attachment under the neck. Don't know how that sits on. Also, there's a picture with a little boy and a little girl, but it seems like not a little girl, a little boy and a woman, and it seems like the woman is wearing the hat because it has a pom-pom and she has a pom-pom, and it kind of balances precariously at the back of her head. But it looks immensely fun, so that is on the list. I do also have another one from this book on the list, but I'm not 100% sure if I'll make it this year, but this is another. They are all in mittelstark Wolle, so just like middle thickness wool, which you'd think would be like DK, but all of the needles are about 2.5 or 3 millimeter needles, and the gauge is around 26 or 28 stitches, so it can't be DK because you wouldn't get that thickness, right? Anyway, so there's a few. I don't even know how many we're on now. I have another one that is so exciting to me. If you've been here before and you've watched any of my videos, I've probably mentioned my rainbow jumper. Love my rainbow jumper. I recently discovered one that's almost identical, but it's kind of reversed. The rainbow jumper is knitted typically like a vintage knitting pattern, where you knit the right side row and purl the wrong side row, and it has slip stitches, which is what creates the pattern. But I found a waffle jumper. I don't know why it's called a waffle, because it doesn't have any kind of waffle stitch at all, but it is called a waffle pattern. And that one, from what I understand and from what I remember, it's knitted on every row, so there's no purling. So that could be interesting. I do often do my vintage knitting patterns in the round. Some of them I do flat, but if it's endless amounts of stockinette, I'll just do it in the round. So this one could be fun because I could knit it flat and like knit it to pattern. I have some cotton, a combination of cotton wool that I wanted to make the original rainbow jumper in, but it just didn't work. It was so like airy, and it wasn't what I wanted. But I'm thinking this one might work, because then I could make that one for spring, and yeah, I might do that and knit it flat, because it'll be knitting on both sides, and it's quite fun. So that's on the list. The next pattern is a definite on my list. In fact, I will get the yarn. This one's the Best Way Fair Isle Flowers pattern. This pattern came from the vintage Facebook group that I'm on. So unfortunately, they're not accepting any new members at the moment of recording, but maybe someday they will. So I can't share the pattern with you, but you might be able to find it. I'll put a picture of it, or I'll link it on Ravelry, you know, copyright and everything. But I would like to make this pattern using some special yarn. I'm very nervous that I won't have enough of the main colour, but I'm thinking if I make it short sleeved I might. But it is definitely hindering me casting it on because I'm really nervous I'll run out. But I want to make this jumper in Knitter's Cottage wool. Sorry for the crinkling, but it's in a plastic bag. I have four balls of 300 and... Did I write it down? So I have 4 balls that are 50 grams. They're 155 meters each, so it's about 310 per 100 grams. So I have 200 grams of this wool, and it's from Knitter's Cottage. Vicky has her own sheep, and she got some yarn, some wool turned into yarn in 2022, I think, and I purchased some, and I believe that she has some more sent off, but it'll be a different weight. And I don't know any more information about it right now, but I purchased this wool because I follow her on Instagram and she has the cutest sheep of all time. And I would like to make the jumper using this wool. And also the flowers using this wool. This one is the Telling Yarns wool and it's naturally hand dyed. And I cannot remember the colour. It's like Night Owl, I think. My friend Nina gave this to me in I'm gonna say everything it was in 2022. Not 100% sure, but it was a really, really lovely gift. And I have stared at this skein for the longest time thinking I want to knit this like now, but I never knew what project I wanted it in. I wanted it to be the perfect project, as usual. But this year I want to knit the special wool because I've got all this special wool that has all this meaning and it just sits there because I want the perfect project. This is the year of using it. So I want to make the flowers in this and have the white as the background and make it short sleeved because then it will be like a pretty spring jumper. That's the plan. So do you think I can make a jumper out of 200 grams of wool plus colourwork in this? I was thinking I might provisionally cast on and not knit the ribbing, knit everything else, and then if I do run out of wool, it'll just be the ribbing and then I can do that in another kind of white cream off white wool and it might not be as obvious. I don't know, because it's going to be about 3 inches, whatever that is, 3 inches of ribbing. So what is that, 8 centimeters? Oh, I'm going to try that. The next one is not really my normal style, to be honest, but something about this just really drew me in. I also got this one from the Vintage Knitting group, but it looks like it's a picture of a newspaper clipping, and I'm pretty sure I've seen this going around as a free pattern, but I can't tell you where, so I'm really sorry. I don't have any more information about it other than the fact it's called Bows Are News, and it is a pattern with bows, surprisingly, bows on it. It's not the same one I've seen going around that seems to be like it's, I think it's from Susan Crawford. It's not that one, it's a different one, and it's knitted, I think, moss stitch or seed stitch, and it looks very sweet. And I basically have some drops yarn that I don't know what to do with, and my mum cast on some ribbing for a different jumper, but then I realised I wouldn't have enough of the blue, so then I decided I would buy a different yarn and make everything using the leftovers of this drops wool and this BC yarn. But the BC yarn is like, the BC yarn I purchased thinking, because of the meterage, that it was going to be like a sport weight, but actually if you look at the needle recommendations, it's really not a sport weight. And I did make my Christmas pudding mittens using that wool, and my gauge was everywhere because I tried to knit that wool on 2.25mm needles, and the recommended is something like 4 or 5mm. So I purchased all of this yarn not looking at the needle recommendation, just simply the grams and meterage, and thought it was going to work for vintage knitting patterns. And I have a bunch of wool ready to go for my Victory jumper, which is another jumper I will talk about in a second, but I don't think it's going to work very well with the drops because the drops is like very shiny and very tightly spun and actually comes out like sport weight, whereas the BC yarn Semilla Melange yarn is very fluffy and bouncy and airy, and I don't think they're going to work very well. So I have the ribbing cast on, but I can't bring myself to go further and mix those two wools together. So I thought I can use the ribbing I already have and the blue yarn I have and add in a lighter drops yarn to do the bows. And should I run out of the blue, it's easy enough to buy another drops Nord in this navy blue to finish off the jumper. So hopefully I won't have to, because I already have the ribbing and I still have a ball and a half of the blue, but we'll see. It really won't matter if I have to buy another ball. Which brings me on to the next project, which is the Victory Jumper, which you may have heard me talk about for about 2 years. That was the original jumper that I ever wanted to cast on, and I never had the right wool, and I then purchased the wool that I just talked about, realised it's not going to work at all, so I can still attempt to knit it with the wool and just mess around with my gauge, but I don't have enough of the blue because I thought I would use the blue that I already had. So now I need to buy more blue in order to finish the jumper, or start the jumper actually. So hopefully I've got a running tally of what number I'm on, but Victory Jumper and the Bow Jumper are where we are. I need some tea. And I think about the Victory Jumper all the time, and especially when I'm using this teacup, because it's the Victory Jumper colours. Can you see it? And I drink my tea and think, oh, I really, really want to cast on that jumper. I'll get that yarn. And then I think, no, you have yarn, you don't need to make the jumper yet. And then I drink my tea and I think, I'd really like to make that jumper. I also, since we're talking about the BC yarn, I also purchased some green wool because I want to make this Parrot Jumper. And originally I was going to make the Parrot Jumper straight away in January with said green wool. But then I realised that the gauge is significantly different using this wool. And it's got some, I think it's intarsia. The parrots here are knitted, but not in fair isle, fair isle. I believe you have like a little ball of red, a little ball of red, a little ball of yellow, like, and you go backwards and forwards. So I definitely need to have the right stitch count in order for the parrots to sit in the right place. And if I'm horrendously off with the green wool, that's going to be really frustrating. So I had to put the parrot aside, and I've swapped the wool out for a different project that I'll talk about in a minute. But I have found a potential substitute for the parrots yarn, the green yarn. But I haven't purchased it. So parrots have been postponed. They're on the list. They've been on the list for a while because I love that jumper. I think I'll change the neck. I don't want it quite so, but the rest of it. Also, I think I will try to do the intarsia because I haven't done intarsia before. But if for some reason I just hate it or it doesn't work, I might do something else. A little bit similar to what I did with my Star Serenade. But we'll see. Maybe double parrots would be a bit weird. So yeah, parrots. And my last vintage pattern is a Best Way pattern. This one I have also had on my list basically from the beginning of really wanting to knit vintage patterns, but I was really scared of knitting flat and knitting this top part. Now that doesn't bother me, I'm fine with that, so I'm happy to start. But again, I need the wool for it, and we're having a bit of a competition now because I've got this woolly knit yarn and I keep thinking maybe I can use that in this project, or maybe I can use it in this one, or maybe in this one, and I have to actually make a decision. which one I use, because now that I've decided I'll use a different wool for the colourwork section, it might save this woolly knit yarn from being sent out of my stash, because yeah, I basically knit lace or colourwork, and the woolly knit cones, for me personally, just don't work at all with these two things. If you hold them together, I think that they look nice. I've seen other people make jumpers and other things holding it together with itself, holding it together with mohair, holding it together and making like a waffle texture or some kind of texture, then it's fine. But I don't want to do colourwork with it held together, so then I'd have 4 or 6 balls of this stuff and having to juggle with 6 strands of yarn or 4 strands of yarn. No! And with lace it just doesn't work, it just doesn't give any structure, probably because it's just plied twice over itself, so it's not very round yarn, so it doesn't have great stitch definition. So it's basically been ignored, and I keep trying and it doesn't work. But I think if I use a different wool for the colourwork, this might be it. Might save the day. So I have to decide now on whether or not I use the green for this German pattern or for the Best Way pattern. Because I love green. Green is my favourite colour. I love green jumpers, I think green suits me, and when I see it I want it in green. I could technically try it in another colour, but I don't really have another colour of jumper, enough yarn for jumper in that way. So that is, I think, no, there is one more vintage jumper that I want to try this year. It's kind of, I'm lying, there are 2. The other one has a really random name. This one I have seen for free. If I can find it, I will link it. It's Payton's and Baldwin's split neck jumper. Really boring, non-descriptive name. But in the picture, it doesn't really do much for me. But when I was looking on Pinterest for something, I came across this pattern, but somebody had knitted it in, I think it was green and then neon pink, and it just looked so fun. And when I found out that I already had the pattern, and I just looked at the 2 and thought they don't look anything alike, but I like that. So I'm thinking of this one, but doing it in a different colour, like really big contrast. But we shall see on that one. That's quite low on the list because I don't have definite plans. They're just there. Oh, my voice is going. And the last one I cannot pronounce because it is in Swedish, but it's here. This one I saw on a woman on Instagram. I saw the jumper on her and it was so beautiful. And then I came across the pattern in the vintage knitting group because somebody lovely in Sweden had uploaded some Swedish vintage knitting patterns, and I came across it and I was so excited. You would not believe. I was so excited. I never thought I would find this pattern. I never thought I'd never stumble upon it, because how do you stumble across a pattern from 1947 in Swedish? And someone uploaded it. So I am planning on that one. I actually wanted to make that one last year in a wool cone that I have here, but I'm dubious on the... I've seen it in short sleeved and I really like it, but the wool I have is cashmere. It was a gift. And I think cashmere is going to be really warm, so it seems silly to make a short sleeved lace jumper in cashmere. But if I make it long sleeved, I'm not sure if I have enough wool, and it's sport weight yarn. So I basically have to just do a sleeve, like start on the sleeve and see how I like it and make up my mind from there. But I do have a different yarn I could try. So that is another reason it's lower down on my list, because I just don't know what yarn. But I know that I really want to make it. Obviously it's in Swedish, so I've had to try and translate it, and that is always fun. But I think I've got it. So that is the end of the vintage plans, kind of. Obviously other plans will come up during the year. Some of these won't get made. Hopefully some of them will get made, but they're the ones that are like at the forefront of my mind. They're the ones I really want to start and at least start planning, if not start making. As I said, I've already started the mittens, and I'm in a conundrum with a different project. So let us move on to the make 9 of modern. This one, I don't know if I'll go through all of them because you might just get completely bored, but I purchased wool in Sweden when I went to Stockholm, and I purchased this wool thinking I'm going to make the forest berry jacket. And I purchased the pattern, I purchased the wool, and I was so excited to knit it, but I could never get my brain into gear of like sitting down and actually knitting it. And it was just getting annoying. By January I thought, but I want this jumper, this cardigan. Why do I not want to knit it? I cast on, and it like begrudgingly cast on, and for some reason I'm not feeling it, but I'm trying to feel it. I love the colour, I love the wool, I like the pattern. I think now that I've made actual vintage knitting patterns and I see the cardigan, I see all this like excess fabric, and I see the raglan, and I think it doesn't look vintage anymore, whereas before it used to look vintage to me. And now I keep thinking maybe I should knit it, like take the forest berry chart, turn it into a vintage jumper, make the poofy sleeves in the way I know, and make it like a vintage jumper. But I purchased the pattern because I wanted to learn how to make the jumper all in one piece. Like you make a sleeve, you make the 2 sleeves, you knit the body, and then as you get to the arm split you join in the sleeves and knit the body and the sleeves together, and you make the poofy sleeve from below and join it all together. Like I want to learn the new technique, but I don't like how that technique looks in comparison to how it could look if it was done like an actual vintage pattern. So now I'm kind of stuck on, do I want to learn this or do I not? I also keep thinking, when I see the cardigan, I would not wear it undone because then it would flop open, so it'd look weird. So why would I make a cardigan? I could just make a jumper. But then I like the look of the cardigan. But then when I see some of them, all the buttons, they're like bulging open, and then I think, I don't want that. Maybe I should make it a jumper. So basically, I'm just completely undecided as to what I'm doing with this cardigan. I've made a sleeve. This is the wool. It's Campus 2-ply. And I have made the sleeve up to where I would bind off for the armhole. Admittedly, it looks a bit weird when it's not blocked, but there is a sleeve. And I don't know if I'm going to have enough wool, which is something else that's making me nervous. I have 3 balls, and it says that if you make size 2 and size 3, you'll need 3 balls. So theoretically, I should have enough. But I know that her gauge is a lot looser, And looking at her actual cardigan, her gauge is significantly looser. I measured this one unblocked and I've got 22 stitches in 10 centimeters, and the pattern is for 21 stitches. And she used Pickles wool in the original, I think, but she also used Ask the Hillersvåg wool. And when I watched one of her very old YouTube videos, she said that she just followed her own pattern and did it in Ask, and it came out a lot bigger. So she would recommend going down a needle size or a size. So I was going to go with size 1, and I went down just a little bit. Instead of 4mm needles, I used 3.75, and yeah, I'm already a stitch like smaller, so it's going to come out smaller. But this sleeve is also already quite big. So basically I'm stuck. I'm going to make the second sleeve, then I'm going to make a decision as to whether I continue and make this like flat sleeve and just make it like a vintage pattern, or I make it into a jumper, or I make it into a cardigan where it is actually a jumper but looks like a cardigan, so I don't get the bulgy part, or I just follow the pattern like I originally wanted to and hope that by the time I've done the second sleeve, the enthusiasm for the cardigan will come back, because I really love the pattern, like it looks so beautiful, so I don't know why I'm struggling. So it's kind of like a vintage knit, but it's not really vintage because it's a modern knit. Which is the same story for this one. This is a modern knit that I wanted to change into a vintage knit, but I'm having a very similar problem. Except this time it's more about the wool, whereas this one I already decided I want to make the pattern vintage, but I just don't know about the wool. If you've been here a while, you've heard me talk about my vintage jumper. My vintage jumper, obviously. My vintage chicken jumper. It's actually not vintage, it's the Hilary and the Magic Fungi cardigan. It happens to have chickens on it and mushrooms, which makes it wonderful. Originally, it's a cardigan, a knitted top down, and I think in a yoke style. But I wanted to make it look like my rainbow jumper, but with this pattern superimposed into it. But I purchased wool for it instead of the original wool that I wanted, because it was a very expensive kit, which seems to be no longer available, which sucks. But I purchased a different wool, and I thought that it was going to fluff up, but it doesn't seem to fluff. I did a preliminary blocking of this sleeve, and I'm not loving it. I didn't do it in like really hot water, but I did add warm water and my normal Eucalan soap and soaked it for a while, but it just doesn't look fluffy, and I'm just not loving it. This has also turned into a long sleeved because it came out too tight to start as a short sleeved. I've got 3 balls attached. The yellow wool is Studio Donegal, and it's a lovely wool. It's Darnie. That's the name of the wool. This came out like much chunkier than the rest. The rest are this very thin Shetland wool that's no longer available, and I thought it was going to fluff up and be really nice, but it's not fluffing. And this one is all fluffy and chunky, and that's the mane, so it's in there, but it comes out at a different gauge. This grey one just didn't fluff up enough to make it look neat, The chickens are there, but they're not completely complete because I need to duplicate stitch in the the chicken bits, so then they'll look more like chickens. The rest of this will be a mixture of the colour work and yeah, then I'm going to make it more vintage. So I'll knit the sleeve cap flat and this part flat and a long ribbing on the bottom, so it won't be a cardigan and it won't be one. I'm just trying to get over the fact that I don't love it that much, but I'm hoping that as a complete garment, and then when I wash it properly and wear it, it will be nice. It's just when I swap between my two needles, because it's knitted on magic loop, it just looks so ugly where the yarns are carried up here and there's some increases, so then the increases kind of make everything look a bit rubbish, and yeah, I'm just struggling a little bit with this one. But again, I'm just going to persevere because I'm not going to rip it out because I really want it and I've got all this wool. I just have to get over the hump, over the hurdle. I'm just going through this list and realising there's so many more patterns that I forgot to add to my vintage, but yeah, it doesn't matter. They're all just ideas floating around. There's one pattern that I'm hoping to knit along with a knitting friend as an Easter jumper, and she lovingly purchased said pattern for me, so thank you. And we hope to do the knit along together, and it's the Saskie Jumper by the Petite Knitter, and I'm going to use the wool that I originally purchased for the Parrot Jumper, because it's hopefully more suitable to that jumper. Let me show you. So the Saskie Jumper has bunny rabbits on, very suitable for an Easter jumper. Yeah, in Scandinavia they make jumpers for Easter, and my knitting friend lives in Sweden, so she came up with this idea. We'd knit this jumper together. So this is the green, and even though I know that the pattern is fingering weight because I knew that it used tuku fingering weight, in my head the jumper was going to be like Aran weight, and I thought it would be quite a quick jumper, but knowing with full knowledge it was knitted with tuku wool and fingering weight yarn. But anyway, after getting over that, this sport weight will hopefully do the job because these are the two together. My mum originally purchased this tuku wool in 2020 and she wanted to make some mittens, and then she just never did, and it sat in her stash for nearly 4 years. So she said, do you want to use it? You can buy me a different yarn at some other time and take that one. So I have taken the tuku wool and they're going to go together, and I think I have just about got enough to make the cropped version of the Saskie Jumper. I don't want to run out. I might run out, but hopefully I won't run out of this wool. So that I'm going to cast on in February, because Easter this year is at the end of March, I believe. I did look it up, I'm pretty sure it's the very end of March. Okay, so the last few things are accessories, and I'm just going to run through them because I don't want to talk for too long. But I've just seen 3 more vintage jumpers that are on this list, but let's ignore them for now. First one I've mentioned several times, I want to knit the Missy C Cat Mittens because they're adorable. I have the book that they come from, and it's a Swedish book in English, so I want to make those. Then I have three mittens, but I've only got 2 on this list for some reason. 3 of the mitten patterns from Nina from a Crafter's Tale podcast. She makes the most adorable mittens. If you've seen my Tito mitts, they were her design. She came out with really beautiful Advent mittens. The time I purchased her Advent, I just did not get along with the pattern at all. I didn't, nothing was working out. So ironically, I've purchased 5 of her Advent patterns, but the one that I actually purchased to knit along at that moment, I never did. She has this beautiful mitten pattern with a robin that I love. So purchased that. Then she had one midwinter night, midwinter night mittens that have like a reindeer and a house, and it's really beautiful. So I got those. Then she came out with her Tannenbaum ones this year, which are beautiful with trees. So yeah, I want to knit all of her Advent mystery knit along mittens, except the one that I actually purchased when it came out. Her other ones I purchased on her sale that she had this year. So hopefully I can make those throughout the year, or at least towards the end of the year. I also want to make the Juliette Slippers they came out at the end of last year, and my mum wants to knit those along with me, so I'm going to purchase the yarn and we'll knit them together at least start them in March, I think. And then the final accessory, no, there's 2 more accessories. One more is a potential for my husband. I don't know what it's called. It's not really a dicky, and I despise that word. I don't know why. Ever since I heard it in Big Bang Theory, I just don't like the word. Basically, it's like the top half of a jumper, where it has it's like a turtleneck, and then a square. And I think this one goes on the back as well, but I'm not sure. It's from this person, and I thought I could try making that for my husband because he doesn't really wear scarves. Basically, it looked fun and I wanted to make it, and he could be the recipient. And the final pattern is a really adorable bonnet, cap, hood. Don't really know what it's called, but it's a Swedish pattern, and I will leave that there. That will give you a hint as to what video is coming up very soon. So there's my make bazillion. I'm exhausted. I don't even know if this video will be able to be just one video. I might have to split it up. I'm running out of battery, so that's excellent. So I better wrap this up. I don't know if there's anything I wanted to ask you, because I've spoken so much that my brain has turned to mush and my voice is going. So they're the plans for the whole year, but I'll probably do some updates of spring knitting plans or summer knitting plans, just casual updates throughout the year. I did also want to ask if any of you were interested in a little flip through of the vintage knitting books that I got, because I know not all of you are that interested, but you might be. I watched the Closet Historian, and she used to get these catalogues and magazines from the 40s and the 50s and go through the pages, and I loved watching those. So maybe some of you would want to look at those, I don't know, but I could try doing that. Otherwise I'm done. I'm done talking. So thank you very much for watching. Please let me know in the comments which of these patterns you would be more interested in seeing me make. And I would also love to know, what are you making? What are your plans for the year? Do you have any vintage knitting plans? Are any of you making the same things? Maybe you're making the Saskie Jumper or the Fable Knitwear Forest Berry? do let me know. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!